let's start with some of the stuff we need to look at. First and foremost, there has been a ban list, which is always worth talking about. It is the least exciting ban list for us in general. It is the least exciting ban list for us because it is the OCG ban list, but I still think it's worth looking at. Because recently, I feel like some of the philosophies have kind of aligned. Like, I feel like some of the changes they got in the OCG, we've gotten in the TCG or Master Duel as well. So let's talk about it real quick. Let's just go through one by one. I have not looked at it in detail. Of course, I've seen some images because this was released, I think, yesterday. I've seen some images on Twitter and something. It was impossible to completely avoid it. But let's still go through it. I haven't looked at it in detail. I tried to not spoil myself. Now, they banned this thing, which I believe this one is used for FTKing in Superheavy Samurai, which is interesting that they are going this route. I don't know if there's any other hits to Superheavy Samurai. Now, if I recall correctly, Superheavy Samurai has been kind of on the decline in the OCG anyways. Like, I remember looking at that recent the meta breakdown for the OCG, and it didn't have that many super heavies, and most of them were super heavy Adamantipator grass piles. So I don't even know if they were using this. I think it's just because it is an FTK enabler, they just want the FTK enablers to be gone, which is fair enough. Fenrir is banned, which I personally don't enjoy that fact. I'm a big fan of Fenrir. You know what? Let's look at the entire list first. Let's look at the list in its entirety and then talk about Fenrir more, because I personally am not a fan of this, but I need to see what else happened to other decks and Kashtira. The next two are straight up W's. Cyberstein and Smoke Grenade are straight up W's. Those cards are straight up toxic. And should have been... I mean, Smoke Grenade is banned in the TCG since a couple years. Cyberstein should have never came off the ban list. So, good riddance for both of those cards. Both of those cards should have been banned long ago, right? So, good riddance. And that's all that has been banned. Now, I'll say I think there's more stuff in the OCG that should be banned. But for the most part, three of these four cards should probably just be banned. So that's fine. Limited. Let's get Circular out of the way. We're very happy about this. We're eating good. Now do it in Master Duel. Now do it in Master Duel, and we are happy. We can rest our in our crusade against Mathmech. So just Master Duel left. Just Master Duel is left. One is one too many. You are right about that, Skrelt, but we take what we can get. One Circular is still one too many, but yeah. It's not banned. We will not rest. No, I think it's okay. I think it's okay. I think the recent events in the TCG have shown that one Circular is probably nothing to worry about. The next Crusade is Circular. No, the next Crusade, you already know what the next Crusade is. The next Crusade is the next best one card combo that's stupid. Which our next Crusade is gonna be the Lokai. Anyways, Monkey Board, I don't even know. This was still banned. I didn't even know that. I find it crazy to think about the fact that they have cards like Block Dragon legal, but they thought Monkey Board should have stayed banned till 2023. That is crazy to me. They do have Electromite. You're making a point. You are making a fair point. They do have Electromite, but still, I don't know. I don't know if I feel like Monkey Board is a problem. I mean, we'll see. We'll see whether Pendulum makes an appearance with Monkey Board. I find it hard to believe, though. Max TGD, thank you for the 9 months, and Steiny, thank you for the 8. Welcome back, guys. Appreciate you. So there's that. I think this is fine. I think both of these hits are justified. Here we go. An actual hit to Superheavy Samurai in its pure form that isn't the FTK. Soul Piercer to 1. I will say once again, this is a solid hit, but at the same time, it seems like a very OCG type of hit. Emmer, thank you for the 11 months. And this is something in general that I feel like is worth talking about when it comes to this OCG ban list. I'm not a big fan of consistency hits in this. I think banning the Link one was a much better decision in the TCG. I'm not a big fan of this because it pretty much only makes it so this is more than a consistency hit. I mean, yes, some combos would some combos even use 2? I forgot. They can't loop it now? Why can't they loop it now? They can still summon it, link it off, revive it. Link 1 ban was too brutal? Nah, it wasn't, dude. Fuck that deck. That deck was garbo. That deck was garbage designed to begin with. That deck should never have been a thing. So you can't change my mind. The Link 1 ban should have definitely happened. If you think that the Link 1 should not have been banned, you are completely delusional. You cannot change my mind on that. If you think that thing should have been in the game, that combo deck should have been in the game, you don't... Nah, stop talking right now if you think that deck should have been a thing. Invoker is dangerous territory. Why is Plants okay but not Superheavy Samurai? I've never said Plants was okay. Invoker Invoker is scary. I don't know why they thought this was a good idea. I don't know what it does, to be fair. That's the one thing I have to say in its defense. The one thing I have to say in Invoker's defense is I don't know what they are going to do with that. So maybe it's okay. Maybe it genuinely is okay, but it's kind of dangerous. Goki is back. I don't think that's the problem. But the card is really, really good. Is it healthy? I mean, the thing is, it's the same discussion all over again where do we unban cards when the two possible outcomes are either they are insane or they are not playable, right? Now, I would argue that maybe it's okay to do it, but the risk is not always worth the reward. But sometimes, I mean, the thing is, decluttering the ban list is also worth something, right? I mean, being able to take off some cards to give it to some rogue decks or some casual players, being able to declutter the ban list if it doesn't even do anything competitively would be desirable. In the case of Invoker, I think we're walking a very fine line where it's kind of risky, but it could work out fine. You know what I mean? Slumpy, thank you for the 10 months. And Brago, thank you for the 9. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Kind of scary, but maybe it's okay. Sleepy Memory. I personally find Sleepy Memory a much, much better hit than what we got in the TCG, in this case. I am not a big fan of the Delicious Memory hit that we got in the TCG. I mean, in the TCG, you have to look at it that way. We got I don't like the Delicious Memory hit in the TCG for 2 reasons. 2 reasons. The first one is I think it happened way too early. I was not a fan of hitting Purrely this hard this early. I really didn't like that. Because the deck was relatively expensive and has not been meta. It has not really been meta yet. Like in the case of Superheavy Samurai, you could argue, yeah, that deck was straight up meta before it was hit. Purrely was only tier 2-ish. So I did not agree with the Purrely hit in the TCG. In the OCG now, you really can't argue that the hit is warranted because the deck's been like meta contender for a while now. So in the OCG, it's completely reasonable to hit Purrely. But even at that, I think the Sleepy Memory hit is a little bit better than the Delicious Memory hit. Because honestly, Delicious Memory turned out just completely ruining the deck, in my opinion. Like, the deck is still seeing some amount of play and success, but not really is worth talking about in a TCG. Now, I think the Sleepy Memory is actually a fine hit. It makes you unable to go into the most broken rank 2 now, which is the new one in the OCG, which is completely busted. But you still get to go to Plump relatively consistently, which I think is good for the deck. So I like this hit. I think it's fine. The only other option I could have seen was to ban Noir. Banning Noir would have been, I think, also okay. You can just leave the entire main deck as consistent as possible and everything. But if you just ban Noir, like the rank 7 Noir, they don't have like the towers. They don't have that kind of stuff, you know? Purrely is now dead for Worlds. Oh yeah, it's worth noting that this is specifically the case for the World Championship, is if they do separate hits in the OCG and the TCG, like if they decide to hit different cards, the deck is completely bopped for the World Championship, right? Because the World Championship, the way it works is the ban lists are united, right? Which means that now Sleepy Memory is limited and Delicious Memory is limited for Worlds, which is kind of like Purrely is just probably dead, right? Yeah. Prosperity to 1. I love that. I've kind of been questioning why they haven't touched Prosperity. Why they haven't touched Prosperity in the TCG yet, even. Like, that card just completely warps deck building in the sense that, like, now cards that you should only be able to play at 3, you can technically play 6 because this card probably finds it. It's insane for consistency. It's insane for finding board breakers. It's insane for finding whatever you need in any given situation. The card is very, very powerful. I do believe that this card will be limited in the TCG at some point as well, and I think it should be. Ban it then? What's the point of being a Saki one-of? I don't think Prosperity in itself is a Saki card. I think Prosperity is one of the few cards where I think it's okay to be at 1 or 2, because it's a consistency boost, right? It's not like a completely busted power spell that will completely turn the game on its head. It's just a consistency card, and I think it's okay for a consistency card to be at 1 or 2, because it just means that instead of having 6 copies of the board breakers, you have like 4 or whatever. It just ends up doing the odds a little bit differently, and I think that's okay. I think it's fine. I think Process is especially strong post side. I'm not saying it couldn't be banned. I think you could make an argument for it to be banned. But what I'm saying is it's not comparable to other cards at 1 in the sense that, like, it's kind of stupid that Called by the Grave is at 1, because that's just introduces stupid variants. Like, the card is either okay or it's not. The fact with Prosperity is that Prosperity in itself doesn't do anything. It just finds you a different card, right? So I don't think you ever win because you draw Prosperity. It's because Prosperity is like, it turns into another card, which is, I think the concept behind it is fine. I just think at 3, the fact that it's at 3 and the fact that it digs 6 cards deep, I think is a little bit too much if you combine those two things, right? At 3 and digs for 6 is kind of too much. I think at 1 it would be okay. Is my take on it. Fountain to 1 now finally is an actual Runick hit. Fountain at 1 is like Fountain at 2 in the TCG wasn't a hit. Fountain at 1 is a hit because it gives you it's a couple, it has a lot of implications. First of all, the deck now really struggles against Cosmic Cyclone. The even bigger thing is that there's a couple of plays that you could do with 2 fountains that you cannot do with 1 fountain. The most important thing is you cannot chain block a fountain with Hugin anymore. Because if you have the fountain on the board, you will not be able to have another fountain in the deck to activate Hugin, which means that play is no longer a thing. Another reason why that's a big deal is because you now cannot do the fountain, search another fountain, activate the fountain, draw with the second fountain by making Gary to add back the first fountain. You cannot do that anymore. You cannot Gary loop at all. So Runick Fountain at 1, I think, is a bigger deal than you might think it is. The thing is, I think that Runick as an engine, like we do it in the TCG, is technically still playable. I think it's technically still possible to play like a Runick Sprite something version, but it does significantly hit the deck. So I do like this limit. I do like this limit on Fountain. I think that is a very good way to hit Runick without killing it completely. As well as just basically the only Runick deck I think this really almost kills is Runick Stun. Because Runick Stun, now losing to a single Cosmic kind of is pretty bad for it. As well as Runick Stun really enjoyed hard drawing Fountain, so that way you don't have to go Hugin, so you can use your Card of Demise and whatnot, right? So Fountain to 1, I think, is a fair hit that was warranted, but is also good. Non Mind Freak, thank you for the 9 months. Yeah, Slashdot should be here. All right, semi-limits. Now, Armageddon Knight, was that limited? I feel like that was limited. I think that's probably okay. I think it's probably okay to move Armageddon Knight off of the list. I don't remember the last time we've done something completely stupid with Armageddon Knight. Like Armageddon Knight and Greffer, they are very generic. They are very generic and they are very good cards. But I don't think I have an issue with it. I really don't think I have an issue with it. Benj TCG, thank you for the 9 months. Then we have the Superheavy Samurai bike. Now, this is the first Superheavy Samurai hit I genuinely don't agree with. Because it is just a consistency hit. I'm not a fan of those. We've talked about this before. I'm not a fan of the fact that it just removes a starter card from Superheavy Samurai. Like, my take on this is basically, and I think I'm gonna turn this into a YouTube video at some point just to have it as a reference and to have like a more structured discussion on it. But my take on this is that what a deck does is either okay or not okay. And I don't think the solution should be to make a deck do the same thing that it did before, but less consistently. You know what I mean? What's the alternative? The alternative is to just ban something that means you have to play completely differently. Like, you could have banned the Link 1 like they did in the TCG, or you could have banned the Soul Piercer altogether to be like, yeah, I don't think it's fine that this deck loops this thing over and over and over again. You just change fundamentally what the deck does by taking away a card. This does not change what the deck does. If you open a 1-card Superheavy Samurai starter, your deck still does the same as it always did. It's just now more bricky, right? Because sometimes now you don't open a starter, right? Bans usually kill a deck. That is not true. That is straight up not true. If you do it right, you can ban cards and the deck would still be fine. I think some amount of consistency hits can be okay in the form of, like, Prosperity is a consistency hit, but it's like a consistency hit for every deck, so I think it's fine. The same goes for something like Rhoda or Terraforming. I'm okay with those cards being limited or semi-limited. When it comes to a card like this, which is straight up like a 1-card combo starter for an entire deck, Either you think it's okay for that deck to exist and for that deck to do what it does, or you think it's not okay. So they banned Protoss. For example, banning Protoss was a great hit to Sword Soul, right? Because that changes the fact that you cannot do Protoss anymore in Sword Soul, but it did not kill the deck. Banning Diablosis didn't kill Cash, but it still did something. Right? Those are the type of hits that I'm talking about. Those are the type of bans that fundamentally change how a deck works, but it is not just a straight up consistency hit, right? So yeah, not a fan of this. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. These next two, I have no idea. I have no idea what this is about. I do not understand what they are on about here. Like, genuinely, what the hell are they cooking with these two cards on the ban list? Like, look, Block Dragon. Now, I'll say one thing, and this is not debatable. You cannot change my mind. If your opinion is that Block Dragon should be legal, you are wrong. Objectively wrong. Block Dragon is a card that has, like, the text box on Block Dragon is I should be banned. That is what it says on Block Dragon. That is literally, I don't know Japanese, but this is the translation, word for word, of these thingies on the card here. This reads, I should be banned. Okay? This is what this says. In case you don't speak Japanese. Meowmoo is pretty much the same thing. I have no idea why they decided to use to move Meowmoo from 1 to 2. I have no idea why it's going that direction. I have no idea why it's going that direction. Bro. No. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing. Unbans. Ancient Fairy Dragon does nothing. Salamangreat Gazelle, unfortunately, does nothing. Skuldred, unfortunately, does nothing. Ptolemaeus, unfortunately, does nothing. Steam the Cloak, unfortunately, does nothing. Thunder Dragon Hawk in the OCG maybe can do something because they have Colossus. We don't. So for us, 3 Hawk is completely irrelevant. For them, maybe it's fine. Tenki is a good card that can eventually see play if they print another good Beast Warrior. So that's a relevant unban. Nadir Servant is also a good card. Honestly, it's at 3 in the TCG, and I still don't see it doing anything. Like, people that are putting Nadir Servant in freaking Branded or whatever, they're coping. I don't think it really matters. Spellbook of Judgment is also fine. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Spellbook of Judgment is fine. So all of these unbans I think are fine. Benji, thank you for the 9 months, and Crawler, thank you for the 2. When will we have the streams playing on locals? Well, I've been very busy. I haven't planned that yet, but I'm looking into it, I promise. So these unbans, I pretty much agree with all of them. I think they are all fine. Bike to 2 means you can no longer get to Vakaushi from Metal Cruncher. Okay. I think you know what? Maybe that's just me, but I would prefer, rather than making it harder to get from Metal Cruncher to Vakaushi, I think they should have maybe made it harder to get from Soul Piercer into a Link 1. Maybe that's a hot take, but I think that's what they should have done. Just make it harder to get from a freaking Soul Piercer into a Link 1 by banning the Link 1. Is my take on that. All right, Fenrir. Fenrir, let's go full circle back to Fenrir. Now that I've seen all the other hits, I don't quite understand the hit to Fenrir here. Once again, I don't know if anyone else agrees with this, but I feel like you have to agree with it. I feel like Fenrir feels fine in every deck that isn't Kashtira. Like, I don't remember the last time I've had a problem with Fenrir in another deck. Like, sure, some other decks are using it. Like, friggin', like, Vanquish Soul is using it right now. Some Sprite decks are using it. Like, some people just use the card, but it's never felt like a problem to me. It's like, yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's a good generic card, but is that a problem? Is it so bad that there's a good generic card? To me, Fenrir feels like a little bit better version than Pankratops because it's also good going first. Which, yes, that means it's a good card, but that doesn't mean it needs to be banned. Like, I genuinely don't feel like it needed to be banned. If they were trying to hit Kashtira specifically even more, then just ban Unicorn. Because Unicorn is the card that is only good in Kashtira, but in Kashtira it's completely busted. So why not hit Unicorn? It's a tier hit too. I mean, yeah, I guess, but then I mean, if you want to hit tier, you can do other things. I don't know. I personally don't agree with the Fenrir hit. The thing is, I'm not mad about it. Like, I can understand where they're coming from. Like, the card is very good, right? I'm not saying that card should never have been banned. That card is not, like, that card is completely fine. Even though I do think it's fine, it's fair overall. I think they could have done better. They could have just done better. They could have banned Unicorn and put Fenrir. Like, my favorite thing to do with Fenrir is they could have done two Fenrir. They could have done two Fenrir because I think Fenrir should never be limited or banned. I think it should be able, or everyone should be able to splash Fenrir in other decks to be able to summon Fenrir, search the second Fenrir. Period. I would have liked that. Like Malicious, yeah. It's one of the few cards where I would have liked it being at 2. And then if you really want to hit Cash harder, then ban Unicorn. And if you want to hit tier harder, then ban another tier card. So I don't like this Fenrir hit, but I can understand it, but I don't agree with it. And that's it. Overall, I think it's a good ban list, even though I do have some questions. Okay, stop screaming at me for a second. My first question is, why did they not hit Rescue Ace at all? Because, I mean, maybe this is just a very recent development, but let me pull it up. The most recent OCG metagame report has Rescue Ace as the top contender. So maybe, is this too new? Did they not want to touch it because it's so new? I can understand that. I guess. And then the other thing is, once again, this is one of the recent decks that won. Like, I think this player qualified for the World Championship. This is the Korean WCQ. They qualified for the World Championship by winning with Tearlaments. Tearlament, believe it or not, dude, look at this deck list. Almost everything is limited in some way, shape, or form. No Kid Kalos, whatever. And still, this deck keeps winning in the OCG, which I personally don't even understand, but it is what it is. If you wanted to hit this deck particularly, the only hit they made to this deck, the only hit was they hit Fenrir. Which, out of all the cards they could have hit, is probably my least favorite one. Like, ban Unicorn, ban one of the field spells, ban Birth, ban some of the fusions here, whatever, ban Chaos Ruler, ban Ishizu cards. I don't care. Fenrir was my least favorite card out of these cards to hit. Fenrir is a rough hit, I agree, but I think they could have hit, my argument is they could have hit this deck without also killing all the other decks that maybe wanted to play Fenrir. Which, to be fair, Fenrir at 1, I think, was already a mistake. Like, 1 Fenrir already makes it pretty much not splashable in other decks without a bigger Kashtira engine, which I already disagreed with. So at the point where Kashtira Fenrir is already limited, you might as well ban it, I guess, right? But still, Fenrir is too strong in a simplified game state. Not a wrong statement, but at the same time, you don't really get to that many simplified game states these days. But yeah. Anyways, that is my take on this ban list. I'm questioning why it had to be Fenrir, and I'm questioning that they didn't hit Rescue Ace. Everything else I can get behind. Everything else I can get behind. Also worth noting though, that where is it? Branded was also doing pretty well, and Branded is also one that remained unhit on this ban list, right? Is there anything in here that was used by Branded? Not that I'm aware of, right? I don't think anything here was in a Branded deck. Nadir, well, Nadir is unbanned, if anything, but I don't think the good Branded players or good Branded versions are going to be on Nadir. I know that some cards are already at 1. I know some stuff for Branded is already limited, but it doesn't change the fact. It doesn't change the fact that the deck is already represented, even with those restrictions. Branded is already doing fine. So the other decks taking a hit certainly won't hurt Branded, right? Purrely taking a hit, Runick taking a hit, Mathmech taking a hit, Emancipator's taking some hits, Tearlaman's taking some hits, Kashtira taking some hits, Superheavy Samurai taking some hits. Almost all the other decks here take a hit, except for Branded. So even though the deck is already hit on the ban list, it certainly is gonna profit from that. Certainly gonna benefit from the other decks being hit. So as far as the OCG meta goes, I think Rescue Ace is still looking okay. Purrely is still looking okay. Branded is looking good, of course. I think Emancipator might still be okay. I don't know. Vanquish Soul, hopefully, with the new support, can shine. I'm praying for Vanquish Soul. And Dragon Link is probably also fine. The rest, like Mathmech, I don't see being great. Runick Stun, I don't think is great with one Fountain. Tearlament, hopefully, is now dead. Kashtira is... I'm pretty sure Kashtira is now dead. Without Fenrir, nah. Superheavy is looking hella destroyed, kind of. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye out for the OCG meta. But overall, I still think I think overall, even if you disagree with the Fenrir hit, you probably have to agree that this is a overall solid ban list for the format.